Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So, Commander is a format that is incredibly unique in that there is, well, a social contract when you're playing, that there are certain things that certain play groups and certain people who play want to play with and don't want to play with. Certain aspects of the game that might be okay in other formats where anything goes, but in Commander, again, there is that social aspect that does need to be considered. So, on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about kind of a gray area of sorts where I've asked my own playgroup and gotten different responses on this, and yeah, I think there's a good question here. Is this a taboo? So let me paint a picture for you, okay? And yeah, Jetmir, a very nice picture right there from Ryan Pancoast. A 5/4 cat demon for 4 mana that says creature control get +1/+0 and have vigilance as long as you control 3 or more creatures. And then if you get to 6 creatures, an additional +1/+1 in trample, then additional 1, and then also double strike if you've got 9 or more. So a Jetmir deck is one that wants to go incredibly wide and get a lot of creatures out. And yeah, that's what you're going to do. And so here's the scenario, okay? This is your commander. You've got a huge board. You've got so many creatures out there. And your opponents, well, if they don't stop you, you are going to win the game. So they have survived the round, essentially. And it's on the next opponent's turn. And they're like, okay, guys, don't worry. I've got this. All right, I will stop this Jetmir player, this obnoxiousness, and I will cast a Wrath of God. That is what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrath the board, and I will reset things, and that Jetmir player is going to be set way back because all the resources are on the board, essentially. And so, yeah, Wrath of God, if you don't know. Sorcery for 4 mana, destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated. That's where the term Wrath comes from, essentially. So anyway, to essentially destroy all creatures. So that's a completely fair play, right? There is nothing taboo about wrathing the board and destroying the creatures. That being said, me, the Jetmir player, I'm like, hey, okay, well, if you're going to be doing that, I'm going to cast a little spell. It's called Natural Affinity. Natural Affinity is an instant for 2 and a green. Until end of turn, all lands become 2/2 creatures that are still lands. So essentially, hey, yeah, okay, you're wrathing the board, which normally would just be destroying creatures. But now I'm turning every single land, including yours, including mine, into a 2/2 creature. Meaning that that little Wrath of God, which normally would just take out the creatures on the board and solve the Jetmir issue, has now become a different issue where this is now a mass land destruction spell in a way. But me as the Jetmir player, I didn't cast the Wrath. I didn't do it. All I did was turn all the lands into creatures. I animated the lands. So who's at fault here? Is anyone at fault here? Is this something that is allowed? Again, I got both perspectives essentially when I was asking my own playgroup. I've got my own perspective myself. My perspective, let me just put it out there, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments below on my perspective, and I'd love to hear from you in your own perspective and what you think about all this, is that if you are that Jetmir player, you need to let that player know, essentially. I mean, and this, I guess, goes for more groups that are like, do take backsies, essentially. You can be like, hey, if you're going to cast that Wrath of God, I will cast my Natural Affinity, which actually does fit in this Jetmir deck, because this actually works very well in a Jetmir deck. It's not like I'm just including it as like, you know, hey, let's do Wrath, you know, all the lands. So it is a spell that could definitely fit in those kinds of decks. If you cast that Wrath, I will cast this in response because you're going to set me back a ton. I'm going to set everyone back to the Stone Age, essentially. So it's kind of a Wrath deterrence in that way to say, don't Wrath the board, or we're going back to no lands. So is that okay? Do you have to give them that heads up? Should you even consider that kind of a play? Or is this the type of play where, no, you're not allowed to do that either? You're literally not allowed to play Natural Affinity because you are turning that Wrath of God into a mass land destruction spell. And for the vast majority of Commander groups out there, the vast majority of Commander players out there, mass land destruction is a massive no-no. There's a reason why Armageddon and also stacks pieces like, you know, Winter Orb, essentially which mess with lands, are not allowed at most tables. They're the saltiest cards in Commander, year after year after year. So, Natural Affinity, is this a card that you're allowed to respond to a Wrath in? Do you have to let that opponent know before they're casting that Wrath that, hey, if you do this, I will do this? And again, is that even allowed? One of my players in the play group just said scoop, essentially, as soon as that was essentially brought up. Just essentially, oh yeah, okay, they're going to cast a Wrath, I'm going to cast this. Yeah, let's just stop this game because I'm not rebuilding up all my lands when we're on turn 10, and this is going to take forever. So, what are the questions on that? Now, let's jump a little further into this discussion because I actually have made an entire episode around, well, this kind of concept, but it being more upfront. So, like Kamahl Fist of Krosa. A 4/3 human druid for 6 mana. Pay a green, target land becomes a 1/1 creature time of turn, still a land. Pay 2, green, 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 creatures control get +2, so you gain triple time of turn. Basically, the concept of this essentially is like, right, hey, cool. Animate your lands, overrun effect, take out your opponent's whip bet. That being said, the version that I made is kind of a mean version of Kamahl because, again, it says target land becomes a 1/1 creature time of turn. It doesn't say target land you control. Now, Wizards has changed a lot of that text over the years now, where basically all these types of effects, including the newer Kamahl, only target your own lands because they've learned that players like me might take advantage of that potentially. And again, even if you just play Kamahl in a deck that's not built around destroying your opponent's lands, which most are not, this is basically a Wrath prevention, right? A Wrath deterrence. You say, hey, everyone, I understand that I'm in a commanding position right now, okay? I understand that I've got this good army, I've got a lot of mana, I can do a lot of things. I understand that you want to Wrath the board, I understand that you want to cast that Wrath of God. However, I will be holding mana up, and for every mana I spend, I will turn whoever is casting that Wrath, I'll turn their lands into creatures, which will get taken out. So do not cast a Wrath. That is a bit more upfront, right? That is essentially like, hey, you know what? That is a deterrence. That's like, you know what? If you go with the nuclear option, I will too. I see that is slightly more fair than the natural affinity because, again, it is not just a, hey, surprise land destruction. It is, this is out here, and you know what's going to happen if you do that. And I've actually run into that scenario once before where someone went through the rest still. So, yeah, essentially, if you decide to do that, I will get rid of your lands. I think that is completely fair game and not taboo because you're giving them the decision to not cast the Wrath. You're going to have to do something else, get rid of Kamahl in another way, and then Wrath in order to avoid this happening. That being said, again, yeah, the natural affinity one, is that okay? Again, I got mine is you need to use it as a deterrent and say, don't do this or I will do that. And then you're allowed to do that. The players still go through with it. That's their fault. All right, moving on. Joriel, Empress of Beasts is yet another one of these cards that can be built in that way where, hey, pay 2 and a green, tap, discard 2 cards, and so on turn. All lands target player controls are 3/3 creatures that are still lands. So again, you can obviously target yourself, make your lands into creatures, swing out, take your opponents out with your creature lands. That being said, it's also a deterrent, and players out there, I will let you know, be wary. Even if that Joriel player has Joriel tapped, there are plenty of ways in green to untap it and do it again. So don't think that you're safe just because Joriel is tapped and be like, well, I didn't think that they could Wrath. Yes, be careful with that. So again, it is a deterrent because it is on the battlefield, and as long as they have those 2 cards in hand, actually they probably need 3, right, if they don't have an untap effect in play because the untap effect would be in the hand. As long as they have the requirements, you're going to have to not cast that Wrath. Or at least be like, hey, if I Wrath, are you going to destroy all my lands? And then they're going to be like, not telling you. So, yes, this one, again, is more targeted, like Kamahl, where it's like, hey, yeah, I can actually just make it so it's just you. We're not resetting the game for everyone. I'm just like, if you decide to Wrath me, they're all gone. And I think that is completely fair game because, again, you're putting on that player's plate to essentially find another answer instead of that Wrath. You need to find another answer to stop what I'm doing except for that Wrath, which will just demolish all of, well, in this case, your lands, not mine. Now, there's only so many ways to actually turn lands into creatures because Wizards at some point was like, hey, players are using this in a way that we don't like, that we probably didn't anticipate, that they're actually turning all these things into land destruction. Maybe they did actually anticipate that because, back in the day, there was a lot more, land destruction spells out there and Stone Rain and that kind of stuff. And these days, there's not nearly as much or not nearly as effective ones. And so also, back then, we got Nature's Revolt back in 7th edition, apparently. All lands are 2/2 creatures that are still lands. So having this in play again is an upfront deterrent. It is not like Natural Affinity, which is an instant for whatever reason, that out of nowhere can just be like, oh, okay, your Wrath turned into a mass land destruction Armageddon, essentially. Haha! This is more so, no, this is in play. All of a sudden, we are all on the same page. All of our lands are creatures. Do not Wrath with this in play. You need to get rid of this first. Otherwise, you you, player, are actually destroying all the lands. You are Armageddon, essentially. You are. And that is in my perspective. And now, yeah, are you setting that player up for failure, essentially, and not allowing them to utilize one of their cards? Yes. But again, you need to find a way around this. You need to remove this. You need to stop this from happening. And again, as long as it's understood that, hey, this is the deterrent that's in play, do not wrath the board, or all the lands are gone. Yeah, I think that's completely fair game. And lastly, I think this is the only other one I really found. Living Plane. This one's really old. I mean, really, really old. I think it's in Legends. Yeah, Enchant World, 4 mana. All lands are 1/1s, essentially, is basically what this really is. So, essentially, all lands are creatures, they're still lands, or lands are still creatures. I don't know. Anyways, they're 1/1 creatures, so the exact same thing, essentially. Yet we need to, well, again, establish that this is a deterrent, and that, hey, if you are casting Wrath, that is kind of on you at that point. So again, it's kind of a gray area, and there's a lot of gray areas in Commander where, again, some playgroups are going to be okay with one thing, other playgroups are going to be okay with another thing. It's completely understandable, and everyone's got their own, perspective on Commander and what should be allowed, what shouldn't be allowed. It's a very interesting format because, unlike every other format, like, standard, that's just, hey, we're competing with 2 people, okay? There's no, opinions that influence the actual rules of the game. Anything goes. Versus Commander, it's like, hey, you sat down this table, we're all agreeing on this social contract to essentially play the game in a similar manner because some players don't like playing against stacks or mass land destruction. And this is one of those gray areas where, is it last land destruction? Is it on the player who has natural affinity? Should you even be allowed to play natural affinity unless you're playing it on your turn, I guess? Because the only other way that you'd be playing it, essentially, for most part, is to wrath the lands. So it's a very interesting kind of gray area where, again, I'd love to hear from you. Again, I already heard from my play group. There was perspectives on each side, essentially. Again, one was just scoop, essentially, and the other one was like, no, that's completely fine. You don't need to actually use it as a deterrent. In my opinion, and this is just coming from me, I think that you need to be like, hey, player who is about to cast that Wrath of God, I'm going to play this if you do that, and this is on you. So, that's just my perspective. And other players might say, no, that's on you for casting Natural Affinity. It's like, well, it fits in my Jetmir deck. It's completely fine, okay? So, we shall see, though. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all this. If you are interested in these cards, make sure you check out that card with the link in the description below. But maybe have that discussion with your play group first on, hey, can I turn your lands into creatures that you destroyed? We'll see. So, let me know in the comments below. And, of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.